Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. We are going to get started in just a second. Okay, Rob, we are ready to get started when you are. Good evening, everyone. I call to order the September 18th, 2023 business meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request everyone in the audience to silence your cell phones and electronic devices. Ms. Wagner, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bolton? Present. Mr. Craig? Ms. Jones? Here. Dr. Moffitt? Here. Mr. Morosky? Mrs. Weinberg? Here. President Lindy?
Here. Members of the public who are watching online and wish to speak this evening may do so by clicking the chat button now. The chat feature will be open for your requests for the next 5 minutes. Please submit your name, your affiliation, your school community, your topic, and your contact information if you would like a direct response to any question you might have. I mentioned this in our meeting last week, and I'll just mention this again briefly tonight, but when we had a working retreat with the Council of Great City Schools governance coaches a few weeks ago, one of the coaches, Ray Hart, shared with us a quote that really struck me, which is that what happens in the boardroom is echoed in the classroom. And his point, again, what happens in the boardroom is echoed in the classroom, is that what we do here and model here impacts the organization. And so tonight, I hope we can model being focused on our most important student outcomes goals and our most important community-driven values as we engage in our progress monitoring discussion later on in our agenda. This is going to be the first in what will be a series of monthly progress monitoring efforts where in public, we check to see whether or not we're making meaningful progress towards the outcomes and values that are most important to the folks who elected us. And I'm excited to do that with you here this evening. As we move to the second item on our agenda, we have these 3-month board priorities. And I was originally hoping we could have a discussion tonight to narrow from the list that people shared last time to a smaller, tighter list of 3 to 5 for this fall semester. However, we're missing 2 of our board members this evening in Mr. Morosky and Vice President Craig. And so absent objection from other board members, what I'd like to propose is that we do that, but let's do that when we make sure we have all 7 of us here at the same time. Any objections to returning to this when we have everybody? No. Okay. So with that, we'll move to our next item, which is the superintendent's update.
Thank you, President Lindy. A couple of updates tonight. The first thing that we would like to do is recognize our students. So this slide shows our national merit, national merit scholars semifinalists. We have a total of, I believe the number overall was 24. Don't quote me on the number. We'll get that number right in a moment. But the top list of students are from Walnut Hills. And this year we have a student that is a national merit semifinalist from CDA. These students, they're honored the National Merit Scholarship Program honors individual students who show exceptional academic ability and potential for success in rigorous college studies. If named a finalist, so these students are juniors, and if they're named a finalist, that would be done next year. And if they're named a finalist, they are offered the opportunity to apply for National Merit Scholarships up towards 7,000 different types of scholarships the students could be eligible for, and totaling about $28 million. So we did want to take a moment and just recognize these students. We have time set up to get the pictures of the students, and hopefully at the next board meeting, we'll be able to share the pictures of the students as well, and hopefully recognize them as our actual finalists when that time comes. Our update for tonight as well, we have two more updates for tonight. The next one is our update on our Bramble sessions and our community engagement for Bramble. And this is just an update for the board, just so that we have information on where we are currently. Next slide, please. So we have conducted several different sessions, several different community feedback sessions. They've both been interactive and connected in terms of the type of conversations that have occurred. The numbers have not been as large as we wanted in terms of the number of individuals that are participating, but it's a steady flow of individuals that are participating in the actual sessions. The community feedback sessions the last session was held on September the 7th. Currently, we've had about 50 participants across the board. We've shared updates, we looked at the SWOT analysis and the different types of configurations that have been recommended by those that have been involved, as well as a focus for the overall school in terms of a school focus. The input survey responses: what is your preferred grade band configuration for Bramble, John P. Parker, and Schroeder in the future? And the responses that we have so far, as have been shared, there are about 237 respondents. The respondents have been broken down to give some biographical information about who the individuals are that are responding. And yes, they can respond more than once. So they can be a parent and live in the neighborhood and be an employee. However, the total numbers are only counted once. So just so that you'll have that information as well. So far with the responses that we've had, the configuration preferred grade band for John P. Parker for future use is 3rd through 5th grade. That's the 8th. Okay, 3rd through 8th grade. 3rd through 8th grade had the second highest. The highest right now is 4 through 8, and then the other had 30 that were included in that one. Next slide. The former Bramble, the preferred grade bands right now, disaggregated by participants and affiliations. The largest grade band recommendation right now for the former Bramble is pre-K through 3rd grade, and that's across the board. It's probably more than doubles the other areas so far. And the recommendation for future configuration for Schroeder, 9 through 12, is very highly recommended, looking at the other configurations as well. So being responsive to the data as we plan our next steps, we have staff engagement sessions that are scheduled at both John P. Parker and at Schroeder, so that we're able to go in specifically and talk to the staff, do the same type presentation with the staff members that we've done with those that have attended the engagement sessions that have been held at Bramble. Coming soon, we will initiate a naming survey, which the community will be able to access through our CPS website, and that's under the direction of our policy chair. So he will let us know when it's time for us to actually initiate that survey, but he has shared that he would like for it to come through a survey type. Deepen the work, or deeper work around a curricular focus. And what has continued to come up as an area of focus for the school has really been around environmental studies. That's been very strong in every one of the sessions and all of the feedback that we've received so far. So we want to do some deeper work around that in terms of making recommendations from there. And to continue to seek feedback by sharing the community input survey with the Madisonville community. So far, we have sent the survey out to those that are in the area, in the zip code for what would be the Madisonville area. There is not a boundary right now that is set up for Bramble, because we did not have a Bramble boundary. And so we would have to go back and go to the previous Bramble boundary, but we're using the zip code to try to get more engagement from those that would be in the area whether they are in another one of our, if they're in another one of our schools right now. Any questions in terms of the Bramble updates?
Board members have questions about the Bramble updates at all? Okay, Ms. Bolton.
Yeah, if you could repeat that regarding the boundary lines. If I recall from ad hoc last week, there was we had discussion about certain schools had lost their magnet status or program, but hadn't lost their magnet boundaries. It's my understanding that J.P. Parker maintains its magnet boundaries. Is that my, I don't trust my memory. And I think that is of interest on the east side or the eastern corridor about J.P. Parker, and then your point about Bramble. That starts to make some sense as to, I mean, we know we have to look at boundary lines on the west side just because of the building usage and capacity issues, but over on the east, it could be part of that kind of domino thing. So I think boundary attendance lines, I guess, is a better way to call them. Attendance boundaries can be kind of interesting if we talk in terms of Bramble and J.P. Parker. And Silverton is lost its particular program and is moving, I think, towards a neighborhood arrangement. So all of those kind of fit together, so it begins to be a little bit bigger issue. So thanks for bringing that up.
Welcome. In terms of the comment about the current boundary lines or neighborhood lines for Bramble, we were asked earlier if we could provide data for the neighborhood that was specific to the neighborhood. And because we don't, our boundaries are not drawn specific to neighborhoods, so it's based on addresses. And so if the address has the neighborhood's name in it, then we're able to pull it that way. So the data that we were able to provide in terms of doing outreach for the community in the area is based on the zip codes that would appear to also be in the Madisonville area, in the Madisonville neighborhoods.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions on the Bramble updates? Okay, back to you, Superintendent.
Okay, and our last update, and this one was added, of course, because as we know, our school grades came out on Friday, and we thought we would be remiss if this is the only meeting that we have, or our last meeting that we have this month, and I think our next meeting is October the 9th. And so we thought it would be important with the kind of interest that there's already been around the report cards that we use some time tonight to share some information about the report cards. So next slide. So a couple things that we want to start with in terms of highlighting as the overall district. Our district currently, this is the first year that there has been an overall district rating. For the last 2 years, there was not a district rating as a result of COVID, and the state moved from a graded A to F system to a STAR system. So this is the first time that there is an overall STAR that's given for the district and for individual schools. So one of the things that we'll notice is overall the district did earn 2 stars. We were 0.018 points away from a 2.5 star. We have identified where the biggest area for that was in early literacy, and it made the difference of really about 5 students, to be completely honest, as you're looking at how that's calculated. The other thing that's really important is 63% of our schools earned a 3, 4, or 5. 3-star is considered proficient, and 4-star is the next level, and 5 is the highest that you can receive. And 33% of our schools earned, 33% of our high schools earned a 3, 4, or 5-star. So overall, when we think about the performance of the schools, we're moving in the right direction. In terms of achievement, we are the highest performing in terms of achievement for the Ohio 8 school districts, and 60% of our tested areas had growth. So there are 20 tested areas that make up the achievement component of the report card, And in those 20 areas, 12 of them from last year saw improvement, so 60%. Our highest area and an area of improvement for us, where we went from 2 stars to 3 stars, was gap closing. We improved to 3 stars with the largest increase among the Ohio 8 and ODE similar districts. Progress, 74% of our elementary schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 in progress, and we'll break down each of these areas in just a moment. And for early literacy, while we did not increase in the star area here, we are ranked number 1 of the Ohio 8 in terms of our performance of our students in early literacy. Our graduation rate, we're one of 2 Ohio 8 districts to improve in the weighted graduation rate as well. And we do want to recall that graduation rate is a year removed, so it's not for last year's graduates, it's for the year before. So those would be the students that were included in the report card. And while college, career, workforce, and military readiness, the component will not be included in the grade until 2025, I did want to note that there was a 6.4% improvement in this area as well. So we have listed here some schools to celebrate, and these are all of our schools that are 3 star or higher, 3, 4, or 5, and we have those schools listed in terms of those that we're celebrating in terms of those areas. Our district, our year-over-year comparison in terms of thinking about it, and this breaks down each of the areas. So this only goes back to 2017, 2018, because when you go onto the open site for ODE, I believe it only goes back right now to 2017, 2018. But this shows where our schools ranked in terms of the way that the accountability system was managed at that time. So in 17-18, 39% of our schools were an A, B, or C grade. In 18-19, that was almost 46% of our schools were an A, B, or C grade. And then the next 3 subsequent years, there was not a grade that was given. Last year, stars were given, but there was not an overall rating that was given for the schools or for the district. And this year, 54% of our schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 star rating. So that shows a continuous improvement in terms of where schools have performed, at least in terms of the report card and the way that it's rated. This gives a breakdown of each of the areas, and so this looks very similar to a slide that you would see at the ODE site for how they break down and show the stars. And so for each of our areas, you are able to see where our measures are and how we were able to perform in that particular area. And as I shared, we did have an increase in the area of gap closing. Overall, in terms of achievement, just to call out the achievement areas, achievement is based on the percentage of students that perform at a level of proficient on the actual Ohio State test. Just some points to look at. Our district earned 2 stars here. We had a 3 percentage point increase in the particular index. We are ranked in the achievement area the highest in terms of the index for the Ohio 8. 60% of our schools, that as I already shared, showed improvement in the tested areas. 14% of our elementary schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 star in achievement. 17% of our high schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 star, an increase by 1 school from last year. 19% of our elementary schools increased by a 1 star. 11% of our high schools increased by 1 star. And overall, we had a 3% percentage point proficiency increase for Algebra 1. And we know that Algebra 1 is one of our identified goals as a part of our goals and guardrails, and we did meet that expectation for the goal that the board has set for Algebra 1 for this year. And our schools to celebrate a 3, 4, or 5 star, they are listed here, and this is just in the achievement area. Hyde Park, John P. Parker, Kilgore, Spencer, Center, and Walnut Hills, 5 star. 4 star, Fairview Clifton, Sands Montessori, and 3 star Cairns, Data, Montessori Elementary, and SCPA. While not necessarily meeting the proficiency standards in terms of earning a 3 star, it's really important that we also recognize the schools that are listed because each of these schools, as we think across the board, we looked at schools that were a 3, 4, or 5 star overall. Then we also looked at schools that had an increase that went to a 3, 4, or 5 in any of the individual categories. And for these schools, while they may not have had an increase in an individual category up to a 3-star, they had improvement at the school level in the academic components. And so it is important to recognize each of these schools as well. And Bond Hill, fourth grade math and 5th grade ELA had improvement. North Avondale, 3rd grade math. Rosemont Condon, 3rd and 5th grade ELA, 3rd, 6th, and 8th grade math. Taylor Park, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 8th math. Woodford increased to 2-star in achievement from 1-star. Aikens, grade 8 ELA, 7th grade math, algebra 1, and ELA 2, and that's primarily our 10th grade students. Of interest really is our CDA, Cincinnati Digital Academy. There was a lot of effort put in last year by the staff at the school, by the principal, by working with the team here at the district office to make sure that the students actually came in and did testing. They did a lot of testing here at the Ed Center, and it showed in their improvement. They increased to 2 stars in early literacy. They had improvement academically in grades 3, 4, and 7 ELA, grades 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8th grade math, 8th grade science, algebra 1, geometry, biology, ELA 2, and U.S. history. Gamble Montessori, 8th grade ELA, 8th grade science, algebra 1, and geometry. Riverview East, grades 3 and 5 ELA, grades 4, 5, and 7 math, U.S. history, and ELA 2. Taft High School increased to 2 stars in progress and gap closing. And overall, their 8th grade ELA, 8th grade math, both showed improvement, U.S. government, U.S. history as well. The Virtual High School, improvement in algebra 1, U.S. history, and biology. And West High, grade 7 and 8 ELA, grade 7th and 8th grade math, 8th grade science, algebra 1, U.S. history, ELA 2, and geometry. And for Withrow, 7th and 8th grade ELA, 7th and 8th grade math, 8th grade science, geometry, ELA 2, U.S. history, and U.S. government. And for Woodward increased last year to 2 stars in graduation, so that was an improvement for Woodward. And they improved in algebra 1, ELA 2, and U.S. history. So while the schools did not, you can clap if you want, while the schools did not go up to a level 3 in any of the areas, it is relevant and really important to celebrate the success that's happening in the school buildings. We will go much deeper into the areas of accountability and the testing when we get to our progress monitoring that we're doing on the monitoring calendar. But this just shows you over the course of the years, the performance in terms of the tested areas. And one of the things that we see or that we notice by looking at this, in some of the areas, we're getting close to where we were pre-pandemic, but we've not reached the areas yet. So we see that our greatest improvement overall for this year was in math. There are many of our areas that we had double-digit grade levels, double-digit improvement in the areas of math. So we want to make sure that we are able to call that out as well and continue to look at those lessons learned. Overall in progress, we earned 2 stars. We maintained our rating similar to other Ohio 8 districts. 74% of our elementary schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 in progress, and increased by 1 school from last year. 39% of our high schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 star, and we increased by 2 schools for high school for 39% for progress for this year. 31% of the elementary schools increased by 1 or more stars, 24% of the high schools increased by 1 or more stars, and 12% of the elementary schools increased by 2 stars. And schools to celebrate, I won't read the list, there are so many to celebrate in terms of progress, but it is listed here for us as we can go back to the overall slide to really look at the areas where we have the celebrations in terms of progress. Gap closing was a big one for us, and of course, that's the area where we did go up to a 3-star or what's considered proficient. We had a 4.3% percentage point increase here. We hear us talk quite a bit about, in terms of thinking about what is statistically, what is a statistical overall improvement. And you would think anything over 3% or higher, depending on the area, gets to be pretty statistical when it comes to assessment. It's different when you're talking about surveys and things like that, but for assessment, anything over about 3% is pretty statistically relevant. So we experienced the largest increase among the Ohio 8 and ODE similar districts. 81% of our schools earned 3, 4, or 5 stars in gap closing, and that was an increase of 4 schools over last year. 39% of high schools, 3, 4, or 5 stars, and increased by 2 more schools for this year. 14% of the elementary schools increased by 2 or more stars. 11% increased by 2 or more stars for high school. 37% increased by 1 or more stars for elementary, and 39% increased by 1 or more stars for high school. The gifted value add increased from 3 stars to 4 stars, and so that was a celebration collectively as we think about the work that we're doing in our gifted programming. And also of interest to note when we think about gap closing, students with disabilities, the performance index for the percentage of increase for ELA was 2.1, and for math was 3.3, and that was for our students with disabilities. And we have our schools at the bottom that we can also look to celebrate in terms of gap closing. Early literacy is next, and so while we are the highest in the Ohio 8 for early literacy, we did not get to the next star up. This was an area actually where we declined. We were a 2-star, I believe, last year. 23% of our schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 in terms of early literacy. 9% increased by 1 or more stars. And there was a 2.3 percentage point increase overall in 3rd grade ELA. And 4.7 percentage point increase in early literacy for our students with disabilities. And so we see our schools that were 3, 4, 5 that are also listed here for early literacy. Last but not least is graduation rates. We did earn 1 star in graduation rate. We are one of 2 Ohio 8 districts to improve in the weighted graduation rate. So graduation rate is based on the 4-year graduation rate and an average of the 4-year graduation rate and the 5-year graduation rate. 28% of the high schools earned a 3, 4, or 5 star in graduation rate, which was an increase by 1 school. 2.7% increase in our 4-year graduation rate for the class of 2022. 22% of the high schools increased by 1 or more stars. And the 3-year increase trend for our ELL learners for 2021, it was 57.2%. For 2022, 61%, and 2023, we anticipate 61.9%. So that's an intensive focus on our ELL learners as well. 79.6% to 82.5% for our 5-year graduation rate for students with disabilities. And our preliminary data now for this coming year projects our graduation rates for the 4-year will be 81.5, and for 5-year 84.6. Which would likely give us a weighted graduation rate for the next report card of 82.7. And we see our schools listed to celebrate. So as I shared, the college career workforce and military readiness is not a part of this year's report card, but did want to acknowledge that it was a 6.4% increase from the 21-22 school year, that our industry credentials increased by 8.3%, and we had 32% seal of biliteracy recipients that was increased as well. So seal of biliteracy, of course, means that our students are literate in more than 1 language. The overall measures are also listed here for how this component is done. And again, in 2025, this will be a part of our overall grade. That's where I'll stop. I'll open up and see if we have questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Are there questions or comments from board members? Ms. Jones.
Wasn't sure if I was going to comment, but it's, when we get the state report card, we get sort of pumped up to get it because we want to see how we're actually being assessed at the state level. But there's one thing in here that I think to make a note of that is true, and because it really is, and I'm very pleased with all of the progress that we've made. But there's a number in here that I think is somewhat deceiving, and if I could use Aiken as an example. They actually graduated 100% of the kids who attended school. But the state report card takes in those kids who may not show up. for whatever reason, and maybe the school hasn't reached out, maybe the school hasn't been as successful in getting them in, or they may not have disenrolled or reported transfers. But I think it's important to know, because they were very proud of the fact that all of the kids who attended school on a regular basis were counted for. So those are some of the numbers things that happens in these reports that we get from the state, because it doesn't, I mean, they tell us, I guess that's how the rules are, that they have to report that. But in actuality, you know, I think when you look at situations like Aiken, where 100% of their students who attended on a regular basis did graduate, that is something of a success that speaks for itself. So I just wanted to say that, but I appreciate seeing this report. I think it's great to for us to be on track. We're moving slowly. It's also great to know that we're the top of the Ohio 8, and we still have lots of room for improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could add to that two things, I think it's really important, and I've shared this as I spoke with probably every news outlet last week. You know, the report card is one measure of success. It is how we are assessed at the state level, but it truly is one measure of success. There are so many other things that are occurring in the district that are positive for our students, that will help our students as they move to the next level. But this is an area where we also focus, because it is the indicator for the state that says one thing or the other. I would concur with you on graduation rate. Nationally, there is, actually it's the federal guidelines for how graduation rate is calculated. And that's calculated for a 4-year graduation rate and for 5-year graduation rate. And essentially it starts at the beginning of the student's 9th grade year. I think one of the areas for focus for us this year, and I appreciate the support from the board in terms of thinking about our high school transformation positions, but one of those areas is for the attendant social worker for that very reason. Because as we think about cohorts, you're correct. Most of our schools graduate. Our teachers work with students. They work with them before school and after school and on weekends to make sure that those that are almost there do what's necessary to get there by the time it's time for graduation. I think that's across the board. The challenge is, as students leave, if we cannot identify where they go, if we cannot identify that they're enrolled in another program, then they hurt us. They go against our numbers. And so some of it becomes really helping and making sure that schools understand how that cleanup has to happen and how we identify students so that we remove them from our cohort list. So definitely agree with you, but it's an area that working a little bit more with precision, I think that we'll see in years to come an improvement in the area as well.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mrs. Weinberg.
I will be brief with my comments. Superintendent Wright, thank you so much for showcasing and sharing this information. I think at some point it's hard to be honest, but you had to be honest in sharing some of the things that we need to improve on. I did have one quick question regarding the literacy piece. In terms of early literacy, it's saying that we're ranked at a 1-star, correct? What would be the plan to hopefully move that forward? Because I know that that is a big piece and a huge concern for us.
I think it's a few different areas. One of the things that we really want to work with schools on this year, and at any time, I think it's one of the things that we would likely discuss as a part of our school improvement, one of our working sessions. The way that the calculations are done, you would think that it's just early literacy, and it's not. There are so many different components that are included in each of the areas. So what we take into consideration here, first of all, would be the 3rd grade reading. But the other 2 components that are included in that are from fall to fall for kindergarten students that are on track, from fall to fall of 1st grade to 2nd grade students that are on track, as well as promotion and retention for the students. What hurt us in this category this year, we looked at the data on Friday and we were at a 2.5 star because this area was a 2. By Monday morning, that number had changed to a 1. So when we really begun to dig into it, and the team knows I'm looking at the data all the time. So I knew when it changed, and it had to be a reason why it changed. And so what we found is the reason this one dropped from a 1 to it, from a 2 to a 1, there were 5 students. We were right on the cusp. There were 5 students that were retained after the fact from 4th grade to 3rd grade. Their parents elected to retain them. They were not retained at the school level, and that's a part of the new state requirement that happened. So I think moving into next year, or as we continue this year, we continue to work on the same work that we're doing, continue to work on making sure that everyone understands the promotion retention piece in terms of the students and how that impacts them, and continue to review our data for what's the work that we're doing with our students around the kindergarten readiness, because the students are testing right now with that. It is important that each fall that it is done with fidelity, because the rating happens from fall to fall, right after students finish in the summer. So I don't think that there's really a lot for us to do differently in terms of the way that we're thinking about the work. It's knowing the nuances of how the components are also graded. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Weinberg. Dr. Moffitt.
I appreciate the presentation. Thank you so much. I really would like to make sure that we commend our staff. Some of our principals have turned over, but the ones that were there last year and the staff have really, really dug in and tried hard for our students. And even those that got 2 stars and 1 stars, I'd be willing to bet my money that they were dedicated and committed to our students. For the principals that got the 3, 4, 5.5, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing with our kids, because the administration and the staff have really put a lot into our district in our transition. So I want to make sure that we are appreciative of that. And the slide that you shared that showed some improvement, I think it was slide 6 that had areas of achievement. I wish that we were able to, and maybe Superintendent Wright, you can give a presentation later on, but to highlight to the community what those things mean, to take it off of the paper, to demonstrate the work that's being done in the buildings to move students from one to another. The building may not have actually risen, but there are still bright lights within those buildings that are highlighted, that while their score may have been a 1 or a 2, they're doing awesome work. And I think we need to do an additional job at educating the community on the graduation rate and all the work that's being done in our buildings that's outside of the report card. And I know Board Member Morosky is not here, but if he were here, he would say that the report card is just not a measurement accurately of what's going on in our buildings. It's the state does not like our students, so I'll say that in lieu of him. But we have awesome stuff going on. We've had a transition year with this being our superintendent's first year, and also coming out of the pandemic. So thank you to all of our staff, all of our teachers, all of our administrators for all that they've done this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Superintendent, anything you want to share?
Just to reiterate this slide, and I appreciate that, Dr. Moffitt, because when we look at all of our schools had improvement in some area. And so while we highlighted the schools that had a 3, 4, or 5 in any particular area, I knew that within the other schools, and there were really only a difference of about 14 that did not have a 3 or higher in some area, and those are the schools that are listed here. But one of the things that we were able to see from this is even in those schools, there is something to celebrate. There are bright lights that are happening. There's been improvements for children. There's been improved outcomes for children. So we wanted to make sure that we call those things out for that very reason. So thank you for acknowledging that. I do appreciate it. We also did we thank our teachers collectively. I don't know how many people saw the interview that we did with Channel 9, but we did, Channel 5, I'm sorry. We did thank our teachers collectively. And today we also sent a letter to all of our staff, because while teachers are on the front line in the classroom, it takes a lot of people working together to make sure that we are moving forward for our students. And we can, starting at the time that I started in the district, the areas that we saw that we could focus on, we began to take that feedback and immediately focus on those things. And we were able to see that in the data because we spent a lot of time around improvement, identifying who the students were and how we were going to support them. So that's one of the reasons that we really feel good about where we go next, because we are seeing improved outcomes for children.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Any other board members? Ms. Bolton?
Yeah, thank you. I've been directed not to turn my head, so I'm going to treat this like it's a panel discussion instead of us talking. Just a couple things. First of all, a little shout out. I see U.S. history and American government social studies throughout these lists. Just keep that in mind, because I know one of my great fears is that in the pursuit of math and language arts, we will forget to teach social studies and science. So it's good to see that. Everybody knows how I feel about this report card, and so I'm not going to like wax poetic about it. I like it from a standpoint of comparative analysis, basically, from year to year, and then comparing ourselves to other districts and what have you. Interested in the bragging rights for Ohio from a standpoint of to what do we point to say what we've been saying for 15 years or so, that we are the top performing urban district. So what enters into, because you mentioned that, if you can help us with that kind of talking point, I think that would be helpful to me. Because I've been hearing some other brags coming from other places.
Definitely. So if we go back to the achievement slide, so for each of the areas, there are the 5 different areas that make up the report card. So we have achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation rate, early literacy. For each of those areas, we receive an index score from the state. So if you go on to the state report card, you look at the actual index score on the state report card. When that index score is compared to those other districts, our index score is the highest in that particular area. So in terms of achievement, when we look at the overall points, and probably one of my team members can send it to me real quick, it's the chart that we looked at last week. When you look in the achievement area, when you look at the overall number of points or the point value for that area, we were the highest performing. So that's how we got to #1 for achievement. Overall, when we think about, and I shared some information because I've begun to hear some rumblings about, this as well. In the early literacy area, it's the same thing. So when you look at the other districts in the Ohio 8, our index score is the greatest score of all of those other districts. So that's how we are identified in those 2 areas. Across the board, however, when we go back to really, many, many years for the accountability system has changed over the years. The components have changed over the years. And so the information that I actually had the team to pull that I shared with the board just gave a historical context over the years of where we were in terms of the claim for the highest of the Ohio 8. And there were some years that overall we were the highest. There were other years that we were highest in certain areas. So it really just depends, I think, on how the data is looked at. As we're updating information now, collectively, we can say we're the highest performing in achievement, we're the highest performing in early literacy. That's on the report card. It's out there for anyone to see. When it goes to the other areas, overall, we did not outscore all of the other districts when it comes to the overall star value.
So if some members of the public are looking at the overall score, they could, in their own mind, say, well, yeah, you're not the top of the 8 of overall, but we're saying we are the top as it pertains to achievement, and you're looking at the index.
That's correct. And it's achievement and early literacy. Overall, though, we don't have the highest point value for all of the Ohio 8, if you're looking just at the overall score.
And I think that's where some of the members of the public are, and I think that's what we probably have to try to address, because that has been our calling card with our taxpayers and community for quite some time, so that might be something to continue to emphasize. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. A couple of folks have referenced prior meetings where people have talked about how they feel about the report card. And so I will just reference mine, which I think is a little bit different. And I'm very, very grateful for the presentation. I think I never liked the top performing urban district in Ohio because I think our bar should be much higher than that. I think we have neighborhoods in Cincinnati that have access to fantastic public schools, and I think we have neighborhoods that don't. And I think too often race and income track pretty closely to those neighborhoods. And so that's why for me, I always think of education as a civil rights and social justice issue. And I think that this is a one window into whether or not we're making progress on that front. And the only thing I wanted to ask was, this was a very detailed presentation, and I'm trying to see if I can synthesize a very short version for myself that I can take away. I think the headline is, there are some things we should be really proud of, and we have a whole lot of work left to do. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate. It,
Okay.
it really would. I think collectively, we want to pull out those areas where we have shown improvement. We want to look at the content areas where we've shown improvement because that is the measure that we have. But there are a lot of areas for us to continue working on. The other thing that I think that the data really does call out is the impact that COVID had on our students. We're still, in terms of thinking about where we are right now, we're still in recovery and making sure that we recognize that, and we are looking to do as much as we can to continue to accelerate that while we're looking for overall improvement. So if we have the same kind of improvement next year that we had, the same kind of improvement this year that we had last year, then we'll reach some of those pre-pandemic areas where we were. And so that's what we're looking forward to.
And if I wanted to take away the one or two bright spots you are proudest of, and the one or two things we feel like we most need to pay attention to for next year. If you want to come back, I know these just came out late last week. It is Monday. We can come back to that. But I'd love to be able to say, you know, here are the things on all of this we're most proud of. And then here, I mean, I guess where we're focused next are our goals and guardrails. So I feel like I actually have an answer on that one. But are there one or two things you think are really most important for people to recognize?
I think and this is just answering just in the moment based on what you've asked. I think the data says to me and to the team as we're thinking about analysis that we have focused based on feedback from our teachers quite a bit on high-level resources, on high-level curriculum with our students, on pairing that with just-in-time professional development and data resources. And I think that as we look at the information that's been provided for us, we see that those things together are having an impact on what's happening in our school building. When we think about gap closing specifically, and that's the area that we got to proficiency in, and we had the greatest number of increase in our schools that moved to a level 3 or higher, and some moved 2 or 3 levels, at least 2 levels. But what we notice in that space is that is the differential between where students should be and where they actually are as they're compared to the highest performing the two highest performing districts in the state. So whatever the highest performing areas are in the state for those two, our students are compared to those areas, not just specifically where the students themselves are performing. And that's relevant because our students in our schools show improvement in those areas. And I really believe it's the way that we intimately focused on what was happening in the classroom, how we're providing support to teachers, how teachers were turnkeying that in their classrooms and supporting each other, and really the focus on the overall data. So making sure that we're looking at having resources for teachers that are both, again, I've said it before, but both diagnostic and prescriptive. As a part of our monitoring calendar, we have all of these areas set up on the monitoring calendar. And so during that time, when we get to that component, we'll go even deeper into each one of those areas as it is determined by the monitoring calendar.
Thank you, Superintendent. And I know we have several folks who are here to speak tonight, so we'll thank you for your patience, everyone. Our superintendent's updates are not usually this long, but the report card comes out once a year, so we appreciate it. We'll move ahead then to the next item on our agenda, which is hearing of the public. If you are online, and I should just check before I read these long instructions, do we have anybody who is online tonight? Okay, so for our person online, thank you for coming. You'll have 2 minutes. That's true for online and in person. And if you're online, you will be invited to enter when it is your turn. Please click on the camera icon, which will then let you go interactive. Please provide your name, your affiliation to the district, your school community, your topic, and your contact information if you'd like a direct response to any question you might have. Our practice is that we don't typically respond in the moment, but we can make sure that a member of the administration gets back with you. This request is consistent with board protocol, and we appreciate your help. In the unusual event that someone is not willing to follow this protocol, we do reserve the right to end that person's time. Each speaker in person or online will have 2 minutes to speak. When the timer goes off, your time is up. Please refrain from discussing any personnel items. Finally, we ask that your public commentary be respectful of all listeners. We're going to start with the people who are here in person. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read 3 people's names, and if all 3 of those people could come down, we'll move through folks with kind of minimal time between speakers. And then I'll always read the next 3rd person who can come down and be waiting. We'll do our online folk or our in-person folks first. We'll do our one online person, and then we'll have President Julie Sellers go last. So our first 3 are Chris Heckman, Kelly Patterson, and Audrey Simon. You'll have, we don't, I think, have a visible timer, but you do have a button that has lines coming out of somebody's mouth, which will turn your speaker on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Chris Heckman. I have 2 kids, Otto and Flora, who are students in the district at Spencer and Walnut Hills. So global warming was in plain sight this year, and I'm concerned about our kids' future. I'm here with a group of students and parents asking CPS to commit to clean energy and then to electrify the district. 2 minutes is really too short, so I'm planning to follow up my comments with an email to each of you summarizing a meeting that I attended back in 2018 with CPS facilities administrators, City of Cincinnati administrators, and the utilities group, and an energy advisor for CPS. At the end of the meeting, Bill Mooring, who was then the interim chief operations officer for CPS, he pulled me aside and he suggested that I get students involved if we wanted climate risk as a consideration for how CPS buys and uses energy for the district. That is why the board here needs to act. You'll hear tonight why students want the board to give the administration direction on this issue. We need to align how CPS buys and uses energy with its core mission of preparing students for life, but without undermining their future. Our family renovated a 150-year-old home in OTR to be entirely electric with heat pumps for heating and cooling. Our roof is not very big, but the solar panels and battery storage combined to generate about half of the energy that our home uses over an entire year, and your roofs are much larger. Let's see, we save a lot of money, we have healthier air and 0 emissions. Our group is working on the specifics of a resolution. We hope the board will agree that we need to electrify CPS, but also the administration should conduct an independent cost-benefit analysis for the year.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next, we have Kelly Patterson, followed by Audrey Simon, followed by Sophia Crum.
Hi, I'm Kelly Patterson. I live in district, no kids, but met with some of the students who will speak after me. I'm the group leader for the Cincinnati chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby, which is a nonpartisan group that's fighting climate change. Chris Heckman's also a member, he just spoke. We believe there could be improvement in how CPS buys energy. Currently, your energy advisor is just looking at the lowest cost, which can make sense on CPS's budget, but there's societal costs to purchasing fossil fuel energy. And this does not consider the contribution to global warming and contributing to pollution. And when CPS is spending millions of dollars on energy, then we're helping fund this problem. And we believe that we can change how CPS buys their energy to consider clean energy. Citizens Climate Lobby helped pass the Inflation Reduction Act in Congress last year, which provides billions of dollars in incentives to help organizations and homes electrify and be more efficient. Also, incentives to electrify transportation as well. And we need organizations like CPS to make plans to use this money to help reduce emissions. And if done correctly, it can be a good financial solution for the district as well. Locally here, we've been impacted by climate change through heavier rainfall. Since 2011, we've experienced 9 100-year rain events. And, you know, we've all remember in June, July, we had Canadian wildfires. We had our air quality affected. So everyone from Cincinnatians to around the world are experiencing climate change. And the students after me, I know they have a lot of climate anxiety. So I just hope that CPS can show them that we care and that we can take action on this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Audrey Simon, followed by Sophia Crum, followed by, I'm so sorry, maybe Danny Kelly, possibly?
Hello, my name is Audrey Simon, and I'm currently a junior at Walnut Hills High School. I'm the co-president and co-founder of Sunrise Movement Walnut Hills, which is a youth-led environmental justice and climate advocacy organization. Thank you. And we are here today to ask CPS to commit to our clean energy future. CPS is huge. It impacts over 30,000 students' lives, guiding their futures in over 65 facilities throughout Cincinnati. But the issue of climate change fueled by fossil fuel usage has been largely disregarded from the CPS agenda. And there's currently no plan to phase out the use of fossil fuels in any of the facilities. We are seeking to align how CPS buys and uses energy with its core mission of preparing students for life without undermining their future. As CPS serves many lower income communities, and these are the communities hit hardest by the impacts of climate change, the effect of this issue on students' present lives and futures is unavoidable. But we can divert from this course. For instance, in 2017, Covington Public Schools put solar on 2 schools totaling a 480 kilowatt system. In 2021, Eric Neff shared that they saved $260,000 annually on electric bills, and that was before recent inflation. And that's just 2 schools. And then remarkably, the utilities group in 2018 recommended against CPS investing in rooftop solar generation. Additionally, it is more economical than ever to invest in renewable energy as funds are available from the Inflation Reduction Act, and many economists have shown that fossil fuel prices will continue to increase. So we propose that CPS pass a resolution committing all future power purchase agreements to 100% clean electric energy. We need to know that CPS cares, and we would like for you to adopt a resolution to phase out the use of fossil fuels across the district, specifically the use of natural gas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Sophia Crum, followed by, I think, Danny Kelly, followed by Mark Stegman.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Sophie Crum, and I am a junior at Walnut Hills. I am also the co-founding president of Walnut Hills Sunrise Movement. The idea of taking action against the climate catastrophe is scary. As every day passes, we hear more and more about this crisis affecting our worlds in devastating ways. We see floods destroy homes in Juneau, fires rage across East Canada, and hurricanes flood South Florida. I see it in my own life, from comparing photos of my trips to Alaskan glaciers, or to watching haze cover the peaks of my beloved national parks. But although I'm afraid, I will not let my fear keep me from working towards a brighter, cleaner future. Climate action is an enigma, but a solvable one. We have been given the solutions, and through resources such as the IRA and our passion for our shared home, we have the ability to make a change. This is when we can make a change. CPS is a huge buyer of energy, and what we buy impacts students like me and our futures. By transitioning CPS's energy to greener sources, you not only help improve the health of students directly by emitting less greenhouse gas in our presence, but you benefit our futures indirectly by lowering the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere in general. This is a chance to invest in your students' future and your children's future. As a proud CPS student, I beg of you to think deeply what we're offering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Danny Kelly, and I do apologize if I'm having trouble with the handwriting, followed by Mark Stegman, followed by Jennifer Myrie.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. Hello, my name is Danny Kelly. I'm a sophomore at Walnut Hills High School and the vice president of Walnut Hills chapter of Sunrise Movement. I'm here to speak to you and give you a different perspective, the student perspective on the climate crisis. Did you know at Walnut alone, there are 4 different environmentally focused clubs? This is an issue that students feel and are extremely worried about because it is our future. In a survey, 58% of people aged 16 to 25 believe that the government is betraying them by not seeking action. Our school district has the option to seek action. In our district, we can make a change. Switching to renewable energy is not only more cost efficient annually, but it is better for the lives of our students. It is pertinent that we take action by committing to a resolution to electrify CPS and to help our district and do our part for the planet is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Mark Stegman, followed by Jennifer Myrie, followed by our online speaker.
Hi, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. You're doing an amazing job. We know you have a lot on your plate, and this is just one more thing. My name is Mark Stegman. I have my daughters at Spencer in 4th grade. Honored to be here. We're just here to implore that CPS starts buying non-fossil burning energy. And one point is the marketable, the attractive nature. You look at what Cincinnati Zoo does to take the lead on green. They sort of stand out from the other zoos in the nation. CPS could stand out, taking the lead on these initiatives. Obviously, they could be good student training. But it's not just about climate change. There's health in Cincinnati that we're changing from a not healthy city. I lost my own mother to cancer. As we clean up the Mill Creek, as we clean and the smog, CPS could take a lead on purchasing clean energy that could directly impact the city, the health of our city, and the people that we attract to the city as we try to get more Fortune 500 companies to move here. We do have a part here amongst the many other things that you guys are dealing with. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Jennifer Myrie.
Good evening, Cincinnati Public Schools Board, School Board, Superintendent Wright, and CPS leadership team. I would like to start by publicly recognizing Superintendent Wright and Dr. Little for their collaboration with the Cincinnati NAACP. We have had thoughtful, solution-based conversations around equity, specifically Black student achievement and family engagement. We look forward to our future work together. Last week, our Education Committee reviewed the state report card so that we can plan informed advocacy. Marian Edelman Wright said, "You can really change the world if you care." The NAACP not only cares, but we are concerned about Black students. We agree that the state assessment is only one way to measure student achievement, and we ask, what other ways can families determine their child's progress in school? How will Black students and families know how they are performing in grade level content? As a principal, we used to look at the bubble students to figure out who was 2 to 3 points away from being proficient. We ask, how are those conversations being held in our school communities? Finally, how can students use what is learned in school to be prepared for life and become productive members of our community and society as a whole? The NAACP is poised and prepared to join CPS toward realizing goals for Black students. On Saturday, September 30th, at Woodward Career Technical High School, we will be hosting an education summit for Black families and advocates for Black student achievement. At this unique community event, All parties will be engaging with top area experts in solution-based conversations and walk away with how we can help our students achieve. We ask, because space is limited, that people register for this event by going to the Cincinnati NAACP website or emailing me directly at 513education.com. CincinnatiEducation.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have our online speaker, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
Today I will pick up on some of the points I started to make last week.
Mr. Collins, are you able to turn on your video?
I don't know if I can do that. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you. And if the video doesn't work, that's fine. If you can turn on the video, it's helpful.
Okay, to read this script, I don't think I'll be able to turn the video on. Sorry about that. Today I'll pick up on some of the points I started to make last week. Today, 4 points. 1, CPS success starts with young, active parents and communities driving the district's agenda. Number 2, to win over these young parents, CPS needs to create the right schools and the right locations with the right programs. 3, the district needs to start building new housing on its campuses, as we see happening today in California. If for no other reason, we need to build this housing so that the district can recruit more teachers who actually live in the district and send their own kids to CPS schools. 4, in evaluating itself, the gold standard that CPS should set for itself is a metric that was explained to me a few years ago by a Pleasant Ridge Montessori parent activist. This parent said that the gold standard is stopping and then reversing the large-scale 35-year voluntary out-migration of Black middle-class families out of the district and into both the Cincinnati suburbs and to southern metros like Atlanta and Charlotte. As I said last week, for 20 years, it's been young parents who've driven forward momentum at CPS. With today's $11 million expansion of fully desegregated Pleasant Ridge Montessori serving Gulf Manor, Amberley, and Pleasant Ridge, we're seeing how this focus on empowering committed activist parents in communities to own their own desegregated schools can play out so positively over a 20-year period. It also led to the first green building in the district. In one building, we're also seeing, according to the PRM parent who I mentioned earlier, the district actually meeting that gold standard. That building is PRM. With PRM as an exemplar, CPS can reach this gold standard and hopefully many more buildings in the coming years with the help of millennial and Generation Z parents. It also can achieve electrification and green energy, which was also an innovation first advocated through the parent activism in Pleasant Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have our final speaker this evening, who is CFT President Julie Sellers. And for people who are joining us and are not often at board meetings, the contract between CPS and CFT gives the CFT president the right to speak at any meeting, and by tradition, that's at the end of the other speakers and without the 2-minute time limit.
Good evening, board members. I would just like to report back that the Teacher Allocation Committee, or TAC, process is moving into its final stages. As much as I dislike the disruptions of the TAC process, this year we have had about 20 teacher movements district-wide, which is less than what we've been having. The district did rerun the intermediate numbers to the maximum class size of 28 and not to the maximum overload numbers, which I believe will help every school. The discussion and the justifications this year were collaborative, well organized, and I would like to thank the team for the work that they did completing this process last Friday and Monday. What I would like to say is we do have to focus on making sure that we have higher student achievement. And I believe that in order to do that, we really need to refocus on the Cincinnati model of a community learning center in every school that is fully functioning, not just an emergent on paper type of CLC. We all know that student attendance is the #1 predictor of student achievement. If students are not in school, they're not going to learn. And we need to do something district-wide, citywide, so that we can improve the attendance of every school. I wish that we could dig deeper to find out how to get students to school in person on a regular basis. As you know, student achievement and early literacy are all improved when kids are at school and have their hands on books, and it's part of a regular routine. Our city needs to come together to assist all of our city's youth. As all of you are aware, based on the sizes of district, student mobility has a negative impact on student success. This was well researched and documented by the Fordham Foundation prior to COVID, and it's a research, and it was done region by region for the whole state of Ohio. And in Hamilton County, they found that the student mobility is what was negatively impacting our students. When you are in a much smaller district, even if the student moves, they usually get to stay at their same school because there's only one high school, one middle school, maybe 2 elementary schools. So those students in those smaller districts are not losing and falling back when they have to move and change schools. Citywide, our students have a severe shortages of affordable housing, which is a driver of that student mobility. We have too many students every day who are without permanent housing, and this has a very negative impact on their achievement. Remember, student mobility impacts student attendance, which also impacts student achievement. If we could work with the city to make sure that we have more affordable housing, if we could work with the city to make sure that we have less students who are homeless, half of our problems would be resolved. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Sellers. This concludes our hearing of the public this evening, and we will continue with the next item on our agenda, which are the minutes from special meeting August 7th, business meeting August 7th, special meeting August 28th, and business meeting August 28th. Is there a motion to accept those minutes this evening?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Any discussion on the approval of the minutes? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We have 3 committee reports this evening. If there's no objection, I'll ask Ms. Jones to present both of the Student Achievement Committee of the Whole reports together, and then we'll hear from Ms. Bolton on the Audit Committee. Any objection? Ms. Jones, floor is yours.
Thank you. I present to the board for consideration for approval the report of the Student Achievement Committee of the Whole that was held on Wednesday, August 23rd at 4. We had actually on that day, there were 3 presentations. Superintendent Wright updated the committee on the results of the spring 2023 survey that included growth comparisons. This survey was conducted with students, staff, and CPS families. The survey included various topics area that students, staff, and family responded to. Just to give you a couple of examples, for students, teacher relationships, for staff, school climate, for family engagement. So that gives you some idea, and there's more information. There's full information on the report that's online. Board members did respond very positively to the report. A couple of comments for future consideration were offered in that area. So the second topic, Superintendent Wright updated the committee on the career and technical education audit conducted for school year 22 to 23. She provided an executive summary that included 3 bullets in those findings, one being to establish additional programming throughout the district, expand access and achievement within existing CTE courses and pathways, and explore new preparation methods to increase industry-recognized credentialing. Again, board members had lots of feedback around that. One area of particular interest was looking at some differences between what we're trying to do here and the Great Oaks program. So a lot of emphasis was put on that discussion, and I think that will probably continue to be a topic of conversation as far as what direction we go as a district into the career tech curriculum. Superintendent Wright also highlighted a number of internship opportunities by school. So that is also listed in the minutes on board docs. The final topic was professional development. Superintendent updated the following information in her presentation about professional development. She did a year-to-year comparison from August 22 to August 23. She shared that there was an opening of school district-wide PD Day right at the beginning of the school year. Cincinnati Federation of Office Professionals participated, and then the launch of a district-wide professional development committee. So I submit these minutes as written and hope for your approval. Would you like me to go to the second one?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So the next report of the Student Achievement Committee of the Whole, I submit for your consideration. We met on September 6th at 4 o'clock. The first topic was an update from our two lobbyists, Mr. George Glover and Eric Kearney. And they reported on activity going on at the state level regarding pending legislation. And as we all know, there's something always going on at the state level, some of which we support and quite a bit of it we don't support. But the information is in the minutes and the report. Is the report on board docs? I need to ask that question. I didn't see it. Is the report actually on board docs for people to? Okay, yes, the report from the legislative liaisons is on the website for you to view if you'd like. Superintendent Wright then informed the committee about a study that analyzes the effect of using the MyPath personalized instruction tool. I guess that's called iReady MyPath pilot, which highlights the fidelity improvement of student performance as measured by the Ohio State English Language Arts test. The study concluded that it was very clear that students who used iReady's MyPath personalized instruction tool with fidelity for at least 3 months generally showed more improvement on their Ohio State ELA test as compared to the control group who did not have the access to the MyPath tool. So there's great support for the use of that tool for our students. The study provides strong evidence that when used with fidelity, it will definitely impact student achievement. Superintendent Wright also updated the committee on the progress made in developing an equity plan with clear and measurable accountability standards and procedures that can be assessed and reported transparently to the public. This equity plan will be submitted annually to the board for approval, and the subsequent implementation by all departments and school sites will be reviewed by the board at least semi-annually. So there was a great deal of discussion on the plan. I believe that, and it should be noted that all the board members were extremely pleased with the content of that and the direction that the district is going with that plan. So I submit these minutes as written and hope for your approval.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. Any questions on